to Bears Talk Live with Greg Gabriel, where he brings over 30 years of scouting experience to Swift Sports and the best fans in the business. Hit the like button and hype up this video to support the channel, and let's talk Bears football.
Man, it's my favorite time of the year, Greg. It's we're less than a month away from the NFL draft. This is when we really start honing in on what players we expect the Bears to target. And I know you got a couple of guys that one of them we just touched on. We'll get to it in a minute, but I'm not that I disagree with you, but I really love the player, and I'm honestly, if he's there, I hope you're wrong. But Greg, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. What are we, 4 weeks from day 2 right now?
4 weeks. Let's see. 4 weeks from the second round, which we have 2 picks for the second straight year. That's something that I love, having multiple picks.
I think when it's all said and done, they're going to have 3 picks in the second round, because I think they're getting out of 25. But
you think they're trading down from 25?
I think that would be the play. You got to have somebody to partner.
Someone's got to want to move up.
But I go back to we wanted to do it a few times. 2006, we did it. About 3 or 4 days before the draft, I called maybe 8 or 9 teams, just the 8 or 9 behind us. Just said, we may be willing to move down. Just depends what we're looking at. Just wanted to let you aware of it in case you guys are thinking of moving. That's all you say. We got so many freaking calls, and then we got 7 teams that were legitimately making offers. And we got so many, probably starting around, we had a 26 pick, so it's probably starting around 22, 23, you start getting a lot of calls. And we had so many calls going at once that usually Bobby DePaul, who was the pro guy, handles that stuff. But he had so many, so I was on the phone, Jerry's on the phone, Bobby's on the phone, all trying to coordinate this. And we ended up doing the trade with Buffalo. That's the year we took Devin Hester. That trade allowed us to take Devin Hester.
Okay. They're talking about that year when we Danielle Manning was the first pick, right? Second round. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that year. Yeah. No first round.
We had there was just one guy we were even thinking about taking. Seattle took him a couple picks later. It was another Miami corner. His name was Jennings.
Oh, okay.
And but we wanted to get out because we needed extra picks, and we knew that we wanted to get Devin, and Devin was going to be a luxury pick because he was a specialist.
Oh yeah, and he started his career actually at cornerback. I remember him guarding Torrey Holt in one of those games later in the season before he got moved to wide receiver year 2. Special player.
Here's what happened was that he really didn't have a position at Miami. He played like 3 different positions there. He played
running back,
wide receiver, DB. And you went in and talked. I can't remember who the hell the head coach was then, but I remember talking to him, and he goes, "We just didn't know what he was. We know when he had the ball, he was pretty damn good, but we didn't know what he was position-wise." So Lovey went down. In fact, it was during the owners' meetings. Took a break from the owners' meetings because they were in West Palm. And he just drives down to Miami, and nobody knew it, but he works out Devin and this Jennings. And then drives right back up to the owners' meetings. And then, when we took him as a defensive back, thinking that, okay, that might be the best thing for him. He was never more than 5 on the depth chart. And played obviously special teams, but in practice, because he was cornerback 5, he had to play wide receiver for the scout team. And so during practice, our own DBs had to cover his ass, and they couldn't do it. Hey. So we made actually it was during the season, that rookie year, that we made the decision that at the end of the season, that we didn't want to put the pressure on him during the year. At the end of the season, we'd switch him over to wideout, and then let him, as soon as the off-season program started, then get him involved with playing wide receiver.
Man, and honestly, he had all the skills to be one of the best in the business at wide receiver too. You seen him on a couple of he took little slants and took him to the house. He had that almost 4.2 speed. Devin was legit. So
Well, he was like a 4.3. He ran in the 4.4s at the combine, and he was really disappointed. And their pro day, I went to their pro day. It was an early pro day. It might have been 10, 12 days after the combine. And it was actually on a Saturday. So I went down there, and I got there early to make sure that I had a good place in line, and I was literally first in line at the 40 spot. And I had him in like 4.34, 4.35, his 2.4s, and that was on grass. So I remember coming back because they have Bermuda grass in Miami, like, you know, most of the southern places. So Jerry goes, "Well, that's fast grass." And I just started silent. I said, "Dude, it's grass."
Grass is grass, man. Yeah, he's gonna run. I mean, he proved it. He proved it when he got to the NFL. His speed was insane. But I love that pick. I'm always going to be a huge Devin Hester fan. I feel like he changed the game in a lot of ways. So did Charles Tillman, another guy you drafted. I feel like he changed the way defenses play all over the NFL. The peanut punch is now it's just a thing. Every linebacker and defensive back, they practice that, and it's real. But I want to go ahead and talk.
The Tillman pick, Swifty, was really Chris Ballard's work.
That was Chris Ballard, huh?
Chris had that area. He had Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Arkansas too, I think. So he knew those kids, and he was a defensive coach. I hired him he was at Texas A&I Kingsville, and at the time it was, or Texas A&M Kingsville, at the time it was called Texas A&I. And he was a defensive coordinator there. We hired him away from there to be a scout, but he knows DBs. He's really good with them. So he went in there, and when you watch Charles, especially like when you work him out and stuff, when this is real early when he was in college, and even the first part of camp during OTAs, kind of leggy, and he wasn't real nifty. So it took him a little while to get his steps down. That I remember I said something on Twitter. He got real pissed off at me about it. I said, "Go back and look at the tape, bro." So, the practice tape. But because we talk about it after practice, that he'd be up too tall, and his footwork just wasn't really good. But it was really Ballard he did a great, solid job, because this guy can be an outstanding press cover guy, and not only that, he's a super zone player too. And just a top quality person.
Incredible pick. I love that. And they're already asking. Good question by Petty King here. He said, "Greg, gut feeling here. If the Bears go safety at 25 and they draft McNeil Warren," and I know you wanted to talk about him from Toledo. He said, "But if they were to take AJ Halsey, would you guys see that as a reach?" I personally might like AJ Halsey a little bit more than McNeil Warren. But I don't know if I'd want to take him at 25.
No, I like McNeil Warren as a player. What you're drafting is Brisker, who they wouldn't bring back. He's not, from what I understand, they want another Kobe Bryant
guy. Yeah.
And so they want the same type of player, not the guy who's going to come down and play in the box and bang you. And that's what the Toledo kid does. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you're looking for. I don't see him as a fit. There are guys in this draft that are actually real good fits for that. I think Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina is one. Halsey, I think, would be fine. The guy who really, there's two guys that really fit the bill really, really well. Traden Stukes from Arizona and Bud Clark from TCU.
Okay. The other guy I was going to say is Keontae Scott. He's kind of for Miami, similar.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, because he played primarily in the slot, but there's times when he played back. And so, yeah, you're right. And he's another guy that he's physical enough to play inside. The only thing you worry about when you switch a guy from corner to safety is, does he have the instincts? Kobe Bryant was originally a corner. He had the instincts to play inside. So it's just knowing that they are a real instinctive player, because the safety plays the whole field where a corner's just playing one side of the field. That makes it, it's that much more difficult to play when he plays inside. I used to think it was an easy transition, and then one of the DB coaches and I had a big discussion about it. He goes, "Slow down, bro." He goes, He goes, "It's a really difficult transition."
Yeah, and Kobe Bryant did it after he played in Cincinnati. And Cincinnati, he was a corner in college, and he was part of a stacked defensive back group there. He played opposite of Sauce Gardner, and then Brian Cook was there at safety. So he ended up transitioning to safety after his first year and a half, 2 years in Seattle, and has really transitioned well. He's played both safety spots and helped lead that team to a Super Bowl. So
what the hell's the dog barking at?
He sees a Packer fan out there again.
Probably.
Someone else did ask about another Bears fit here. This is the one I'm curious about, because I know it's line season, and we know the Bears are looking to get faster, and they like the penetrating defensive tackles more. But does that mean that they wouldn't like a guy like Caden McDonald? Or do you think he's a guy who could help this team as a run stuffer?
Well, first, you go back to, and I had one conversation with one guy, I can't say who it was, but, he told me what they were looking for. And they are the whole premise of this offseason is to get faster and more athletic on the defensive side of the football. So if you look at the three guys they signed, and a lot of fans don't know these guys, they know the big names, but they don't know these other guys. All three of them are extremely athletic football players. There are two of them. One guy's like a 4.81 when he came out, 4.82. The other guy was a 4.78. The last guy, Lynch, was a 5.01. Lynch had, which you and I talked about, when he was a junior at Baylor, he had 13 and a half sacks. He was the leading interior line pass rusher in the country that year. And it was a 4th round pick. He's real strong. He's very athletic. And he's one of these all three of these guys are penetrators. They're athletic. They can run. They can pursue. And the thing that DA didn't like about the players he had last year, and that's why Billings wasn't brought back, because he can't run, and is they had no pursuit speed, and they just didn't have the speed or the penetration they wanted from the DT position. So they're replacing them. So you look at McDonald, who I loved. I thought, before I found out this stuff, I'm thinking that'd be a great pick. I'm not sure he's a fit. The other guy's Peter Woods. Peter Woods testing, he didn't run a 4, he just ran a 10, but his 3-cone, his jumps, and his 20 shuttle were actually on the low side. And so it's like and he's got short arms. He's got 31-inch arms. So it's not, to me, it's not what they say they're looking for. Not taken away from them as good football players. They are very good. Then when you think also, signed 3 DTs, they got Jarrett, who's also very athletic, coming back, and you got Gervon Dexter, another athletic guy, but he gets too tall, coming back. That's 5 right there. And then you got Deo, who, when he was signed to play inside on pass downs. They couldn't do it because Booker was hurt. And they played 1 game all season together. So really, when you count Deo as a swing guy, they got 6 DTs. Okay, what did they do with edge in the off season besides nothing? So to me, it kind of points that way.
Now, my counterpoint to that is every one of those defensive tackles except Gallimore right now is in the final year of their contract. So now Grady Jarrett's not, but if he doesn't live up to his free agent billing, he's most likely going to get cut next year and save us $20 million. So you're looking at potentially redoing the entire defensive tackle room over the next 12 to 14 months.
I'll answer that this way. when they signed Billings, they signed him for like some of these guys. Now, the one guy got a 2-year deal.
Yeah, Gallimore.
Gallimore got a 2-year deal. When they signed Billings, originally got a 1-year deal, got no money, got like $1.5 million, and they redid him before the end of the first season and gave him a 2-year extension. And you can see this same thing happening. Last year, Aldo and I kept bringing up, well, they don't have any safeties next year. And I said, when they're going to worry about it? Next year, which is now.
Yeah.
and they're doing it. So I don't see it as a major problem, because if they solve the problem, now if there's a real athletic guy that they like who plays inside, yeah, I just don't see a lot of them in this draft. There's a lot of defensive tackles that are good tackles. I don't see a lot of the guys that are the fit. There's more edges that fit what they want than there are interior guys.
Yeah, and if chat missed it, what Greg is saying, Peter Woods, one of my favorite players and a guy.
And I like him too. I'm not saying I don't like him. I'm just saying
he does not believe that he's a fit for the Bears.
And I could be wrong. And
he has the short arms. He didn't test off the charts athletically. I believe it was like a 7.4, 7.45, 7.5 RAS. But I do like Peter Woods. I think he's one of the better defensive tackles in this class. I like his acceleration, his power. I would like him if he's there at 25, but I could see the Bears, and edge is probably a bigger need right now. It's 50-50 to me, because I do think Austin Booker is really good. He's underrated. I think he could break out. Montez Sweat is good. We got Dio. Shamar Turner can play edge. So to me, I think we need a defensive tackle slightly more, but that's me. That's personal ranking.
No, I know. And Shamar, what they do with Shamar Turner is going to be interesting. I think they moved him outside last year because they really didn't have anybody, because he was hurt at the beginning of the year. And then he gets hurt, tears an ACL. But when you look at type, the profile of what they're looking for, Shamar Turner, that's the guy.
I like Shamar Turner. He beefed up a little bit last year to move inside to defensive tackle. When he was
at A&M, you mean?
Yeah. 2 years ago.
But that's the guy. When I was talking to this one guy, I said, so you're talking Shamar Turner? He goes, that's exactly why he was taken.
Yeah, I like Shamar Turner too. Hopefully he comes back 100%. Now, there is a defensive tackle. Have you done much on Grayson Halton, the 3 tech out of Oklahoma? I liked him at the Senior Bowl. I think he is a guy who does profile as a fit. I got to look up his arm.
Except for one thing. He's got 31-inch arms.
31-inch arms.
And the other guy who I like a lot, but his arms are closer to 32, is Zane Durant.
Oh yeah, I like Zane Durant a lot, man.
I thought Zane Durant had a chance of being a 1 going into the 25 season. His 24 tape was absolutely outstanding. Of course, he had Andre Carter next to him. But this year Penn State, for whatever reason, went in the tank. And the same thing, Danny Dennis Sutton, the edge there, did not have a good season to begin with. But the oddity is, we might have said this last time, was after Franklin gets fired, Danny Dennis Sutton comes on. He had 6 sacks in the last 5 games.
Gotta love that, man. He really showed up, and he looks good. I like Dennis Sutton. I like Zane Durant too. I like both those Penn State defensive linemen. There is one more guy I want to ask you about when it comes to defensive tackle. Georgia DT, Kristen Miller. Do you see him as a fit?
I did, but has he gotten too big? Do you know what he was at the pro? First of all he did was position drill, so he hasn't tested. He was supposedly around 310, 312 during the season. At the combine, he was 320. At the pro day, he was 328. He keeps going the wrong way.
Yeah. Getting a little bit bigger if he wants to be Chicago Bear. I do like Kristen Miller though. He's a
No
guy.
question. I do too. But just the way they play and their athleticism on tape, he is a way better fit, in my opinion, than Peter Woods.
I like that. J2K brought up 3 technique from Michigan. Rayshon Benny has 33 and 3/8-inch arms.
Yeah, but he's a later pick, so
not a lot of people talk about him, but do you have thoughts on him?
I did them, but I did them so long ago for an agent, I don't remember what I have. I have to go back and look it up.
He's one of the guys I have yet to study a lot on, but yeah, he's someone I'll definitely be checking out.
I recall that he was a good rotational guy. I like the edge from Michigan too.
Derek Moore. And I think he's a perfect fit for Dennis Allen's defense.
But here's the thing, and I don't know if it means anything. Like the way things are going this year, I don't think it means anything at all. All the players we like, meaning a lot of the fans, Bears didn't send anybody at their pro day. One guy. And like, okay, Ohio State, right? You think, okay, they're going to have some bigwigs. One guy.
Well, that one was tough because I feel like most of the Ohio State guys are not really gonna be options. The one guy is probably Cade McDonald, and they did do a top 30 visit with him. And
okay, now I got to say that too. A lot of guys that are listed as top 30s, and I know he said he got a visit.
Yeah,
a lot of times it's not true. And I was talking to one guy actually 10 minutes before, and he said a lot of times these guys, you ask, where are you going? And he knows who needs defensive tackles, so he goes here, and here. But he doesn't really have visits there, and there. They just say it. And I know for a fact, because agents have told me this, the Bears say we don't want it out.
Yeah. And that's what last year, I mean, we had a top 30 visit with Colston Loveland, and nobody knew it until months after the draft. So it's one of those things. Q asked
go ahead. I'm sorry.
He asked if you knew of anyone who went to the Texas Tech Pro Day from the Bears.
I don't know, but I know Poles didn't because he was at Alabama.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think, I'm just guessing that being Alabama and Auburn are about a 3-hour car ride apart, that he was probably, and he was at Miami earlier in the week, that he might have been at Auburn the day before the Alabama workout and then went to Alabama. But, Michigan, last year they sent an entourage to Michigan and ended up drafting Colston Loveland. They had, Ben was there, Ian Cunningham, Poles, a couple scouts, like 10 guys went to Michigan.
And everybody was wrong on the target. Everyone thought we were there to see Kenneth Grant.
Right.
Defensive tackle.
But this year they haven't done that at all. And like Penn State.
We know they like being secretive.
Penn State, one guy. Now, the other name that cracks me up is, and I'm not saying they're not going to draft him because he's a good player, but everybody in Mox has got that Kansas State center down
Sam Hagg
as a pick, right? Okay, well, they worked out two other guys.
Better.
They worked out 3 centers that I know of, 2 other ones.
The Kentucky
and one other, and I ain't saying, I'll tell you out there.
Okay.
And one of them is making a visit, and that's been confirmed. But in fact, not making a visit, he already made the visit.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if Hecht is making a visit.
I think this year now everyone has Hecht as the top ranked center. I think this is one of those years where it kind of depends on the team and who they like, because I see like 5 to 8 centers all grouped very closely. I like the Jake Slaughter out of Florida. I really like Logan Jones out of Iowa too. And they had a quote I just saw. It was it's from an AFC scout. I think it was either Dane Brugler or Lance Zerline that tweeted it out. But they said Logan Jones, this is a quote they heard from an AFC scout. He plays like he has a family of 4 and a mortgage at home. He's a grown man out there. I really like that about Logan Jones, man.
No, there are some good centers, but there's no. I saw a mock today that had the Bears taking Hecht in the second round. It isn't happening. No, these guys are at best end of the third and going into the fourth round.
Yeah, and Connor Liu is another one. I think there's a lot of good centers out there. So to me, it's you wait until the third or fourth round and you take a developmental guy. You don't reach for someone in the second. I'm 100% with you there. I will mention
you let it come to you.
I think a couple people were late in the chat and they didn't hear us talking about Peter Woods. The reason, or they maybe caught the end of it. The reason Greg was saying he doesn't think Woods is a great fit is the arm length at defensive tackle. I'm hoping he's still a fit because I do like Peter Woods, but I understand that Dennis Allen has a type, and if he doesn't fit the prototype, he's probably not going to be a Chicago Bear. But I do like Peter Woods a lot. We'll talk a little bit about some of the edge rushers and whether or not you think they're fits, because I think there's a lot of guys who fit what Dennis Allen is looking for when it comes to edge. Leading off with Zion Young, who I saw a couple people in the chat comparing him to Dio based on his size and his ability to set the edge in the run game. I like Zion Young. I think Derek Moore, the guy out of Michigan, is very similar player and has more sack production. So personally, if you can get Derek Moore in the second round, and there's no guarantee of that, obviously.
Derek Moore's a better athlete, I think. Zion Young, what he's got is a great motor. He's a little bit tight in the hips. He doesn't have the real good bend. You want a guy who can come off the edge and then he can lean and bend, get underneath people. But you mentioned Dio. To me, the Dio guy in this draft. Now you go back. Dio was a pretty good player. He played outside at Vandy, tore his Achilles in the pre-draft process. So he didn't play until the end of his rookie year. To me, that guy is Keldrick Falk. And
Keldrick Falk, yeah. I like Falk.
Well, I watched a lot of tape just yesterday. And he played mostly inside. And I'm not so sure because he had a good workout. He ran 4.67 the other day, but he was 270. It's funny thing is that, Auburn lists him at 285 and he was like 272, 273 at the combine, 270 at his workout this week. But he's another guy. He's more like Zion Young in that he's like, he doesn't have that real good flexibility and bend to get low coming off the edge. He's kind of mechanical. The guy who really does the things that I like, he hasn't worked out yet, is Gabe Yakus from Illinois.
There we go, baby. I love Yakus.
Yeah. He's working out the second. So when's the second? A week from today? A week from yesterday?
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
He's had a hamstring or something, so he didn't work at the combine, didn't work at the Illinois Pro Day. I talked to one GM. The GM said, I bet he doesn't run. He'll do position drills, but he probably won't run. But they do have a GPS speed on him, and it's just under 19 miles an hour.
He's got this, and he's also very good at setting the edge.
And he's a young guy. He's pretty young.
And I like Yakus. He's a guy, he started his career, he played a lot of linebacker at Illinois, but I've always seen him.
Well, their base defense was a 3-4. Yeah. So he was technically an outside backer, but once they get into a sub-package type thing, he was a stand-up edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple people bringing up Aaron Donald has short arms. I get it, guys, but not everyone is Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald had 32.5-inch arms on a 6'1" guy is long arms.
Yeah, that's pretty long for a guy that size. J2K had a great question, a guy who studies the draft as well. He says defensive ends, edge rushers specifically, usually go higher on draft than they do in the mock because it's a premium position. He asked if you see guys like Zion Young, TJ Parker, Denai Dennis Sutton, Derek Moore, and Gabe Yakus going early in the second round, and maybe one or two of them sneaking into the first.
It wouldn't shock me that one or two. I think, you get past around 2021, you're getting into no man's land. and you could put, I call them 20 to 40 guys,
Mm-hmm.
play 52 pickup with it. It doesn't
Yep.
surprise me if they go, and doesn't surprise me if they don't go. That's why I think it's an ideal draft to trade down.
Yeah, I said the same thing the other day. I was talking to people after you get past the first 10 to 15 guys, where you're talking about the real blue chippers in the class, the guys who are going to go top 15, top 20 every single year, no matter what year they come out. Once you get past those guys, there's a big group of guys, and you say it's 20 to 40. Some people will say 25 to 50, wherever you say there's a group of guys where they're all similarly ranked. They all are missing something or have some kind of hole in their game, some kind of weakness. Maybe it's athleticism, maybe it's short arms, maybe they didn't produce very well this year. Guys like Keldrick Falk and TJ Parker both look like top 10 picks
Swifty
a year
had
ago.
2 sacks.
Well, he had more the year before. I remember he had more in 2024. I got to look up him and TJ Parker both did that. Their stats kind of fell off.
Parker had 10 the year before and then had 5 this year.
Let's see what. Yeah, so Keldrick Falk had 7 in 2024, and he didn't get to 10, but he had 7
and he had
11 tackles for loss. This year he had 2 sacks and only 5 TFLs. So his production really fell off this year.
Now, also you got to take it into consideration. You got to look at the situation of the school. You had a head coach who was a dead man walking. How does that affect your players? How they being asked to be used. Falk was playing inside a lot this year, where he was more outside the previous year. Again, a lot of these guys, I like the players. I just have trouble saying that they're exactly what the Bears are looking for. Now, if you could draw out the guy that they were looking for, just with the numbers and the speed and stuff, that's the kid from UCF.
Oh, Malachi Lawrence. Okay, where do you see him going?
Eric Yalco, who runs the East West, good friend of mine, is going to be on our show on Monday with Aldo. He thinks he's going at the bottom of the first.
I could see
and
it.
He had Malachi out at the East West, and he jumped out. He was like last year, the lineman that jumped out at the East West was Luke Newman.
Yeah.
But Luke Newman had he 31-inch arms, and he played 3 years at FCS, only 1 year of major college football. But this guy really, really jumped out at the East-West practices.
A couple people asking about Akeem Mesidor as well. What do you think about Mesidor? I do think he's an older prospect.
That's the only thing that bothers me. He's 25.
Yeah.
He'll be 25 next week. And so like April 4th or April 5th. So, if I'm in the meetings leading up to the draft, the conversation isn't about his talent. The conversation is, do we want to take a 25-year-old in the first round, because you're probably talking a one contract player?
Yeah. And I think when you're down at 25, I think it's less of a big deal. Obviously, if you're picking in the top 15, I would probably just cross him off the board. You don't want to take a 25-year-old.
I think he's going to be gone, but but still, when you're thinking he's a 25-year-old rookie, so he'll be, like I say, next week he's going to be 25. So now he's 29 when you get to that second contract. And is that what you're looking for when you got some of these other guys, say like Yakas, just to throw a name out? He'll be 26. And so do you want that type of situation? And if you look at how Poles is drafted, when on premium picks, not third round he's stretched, but on premium picks he drafts young guys.
Yeah. Now I will say
Loveland was 20 years old last year. Wright was 21 years old.
That's one reason I like guys like Keldrick Falk and Caden McDonald. The devil's advocate playing a different point to that.
You're right. You're 100% right.
We're now a winning team looking for guys who can produce now. And when you're talking about that second contract, by the time we get to the second contract on these guys, we will have already paid Caleb Williams. So maybe at that point, you can let one or two of these guys walk, and you want to keep reproducing them with future draft picks. But also, you know what you're getting. So I mean, it's you're not hoping to develop a guy. If a guy's 25 years old, it's different because I know a lot of fans were burnt by Velus Jones Jr., but Velus Jones Jr. was a 25-year-old project. Akeem Mesidor is a 25-year-old finished product. So I think there's a little bit different there. I'm like you. I honestly think he goes a little bit earlier. I could see a team like the Rams who are in a similar situation. They want to win now. They're trying to attack this window and win before Matt Stafford retires. I think a team like that could take Mesidor. But I do believe if he's on the board at 25.
The Rams don't even have a first, do they? Didn't they trade
they got pick 13 or somewhere around there.
I thought they just traded it away. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, because they brought in some players and gave up picks.
Yeah, no, they have a first. I don't know where they got it from because it's not theirs. Where did they get it from? Oh, they got Atlanta's first rounder from the Falcons trading up last
year for the quarterback.
So they traded pick 29 to the Chiefs for the cornerback, but they got pick 13 from the Falcons in the James Pierce trade last year. When the Falcons got that second first rounder. So, but there are teams. I mean, I could see the Tampa Bay Bucks. I could see the Lions looking that way. I could see the Eagles looking that way. They're another team that wants to win now. But I mean, I do think Mesidor is a fit. I like his production.
I'm not going to argue that. The only thing that all I'm doing is playing devil's advocate here.
Oh yeah, same.
And I know what the conversation is going to be, and there's going to be people saying he's 25. Do we want to use a second round pick? Now you trade out of 25 and he's there at 33. Well, now it's a little bit different story because it's not a first rounder.
Mm-hmm. And I'm with you there. I think this year we are in a sweet spot, almost a perfect spot to trade down. The one thing I was saying, if we didn't trade down, it's because one of those guys, someone we really like, would have to fall to us at 25. Whether that would be a safety like Dylan Thieneman, a pass rusher. For me, the guys I really like are Keldrick Falk and Peter Woods. But if they aren't on the Bears board or they don't like them that much, that would entice them even more to try to trade down out of that spot. Now, this year, like you said, all the other teams know that after the first 15 picks, you're kind of out of blue chip guys. So it really comes down to one of those teams having someone that they want to trade up for.
Oh, that's the way it always is. It's a guy that they that they like, and they know. And to trade up to 25 doesn't cost you a lot. Like one guy, a follower, and he listens to the show on with Aldo every week. Levante Rogers, if you know who
Levante's here.
Okay. He said, what if the Jets wanted to trade up from 33 to 25, what would you get? And I looked at the chart. Well, you're going to get a fourth and a fifth. They don't have a third, and it's not really worth a third. So, but they don't have one anyway. So you'd have to get a fourth and a fifth for it to equal out. And you're not going to get a second because it's only a 6-point drop and you're late in the round. But, it's not like moving up into the teens or moving up into the top 10 where you got to really pay. It levels itself out in the last part of the round.
Yeah. Right now, I just think we're in a perfect spot, though. With the needs we have, there's a lot of depth at the positions we're looking for as well, especially when you're looking at edge rushers there. There's a lot of guys, and honestly, I might like some of the guys that are second-round guys, or at least right now being talked about as second-round guys, more than the first-round guys. The one guy we didn't talk about, we talked about Keldrick Falk. What are your thoughts on TJ Parker, the Clemson edge?
I like TJ, but I liked him better in the Senior Bowl than I liked him during the year. Clemson during the year was like Penn State during the year. They just, they're a very disappointing team. And we had Mike Renner on a couple weeks ago with Aldo and I, and we were talking about TJ. And Mike said, with him, he goes, it's like he topped out in the 24 season, and then you figured out how to stop. Everybody figured out how to stop him, and then his play kind of leveled off last year. Now, there could be something to it. I don't know if I totally agree with him, because the talent is there. But that's one thing that when you're doing the evaluation, when you're doing the research on the guy, you've got to really look at it hard and say, has he in fact topped out at where he was, or does he still have a mountain to climb and has a lot of upside?
Yeah,
but he's a good player. I mean, and he's athletically and stuff, he is a fit.
I like that. I think TJ Parker is one of those guys I like. I already mentioned Derek Moore. We talked about Yakis. Zion Young fits in that category as well. Denai Dennis Sutton is the other guy. You said you liked him. I think he's going to go in the mocks right now. They got him going in like the 4th or 5th round. I think
he's going higher than that.
Yeah, he's 2nd round, maybe 3rd at the lowest, but Sutton's going way higher than he's going in those mocks.
I mean, just the athletic numbers he has are just too good to pass up on.
Yep. I agree with that.
Like a 38 or 39 inch vertical. He's very, very explosive. Ran a 4.63. Everything he did across the board is good. And then I go back to what I said a little while ago. The head coach gets fired, and all of a sudden he has 6 sacks in 5 games.
Yeah. Now there is a lot of people are talking about this one. I don't really like the trade rumors, because you know how it is. Usually these guys are talking about getting traded all the time. Do you think Josh Sweat would be a fit here? And I just got to say, someone threw out we could get him for a 5th round pick. No way would we get him for a 5th round pick.
Right now they can't afford him. He's got like a $19 or $20 million contract.
I think
you can afford.
I think it's only 11 or
no.
11
You're right. You're right. It's costing them the money because of the bonus.
Yeah. Oh,
It would cost the Bears around $10 million.
They could make that work.
Yeah, they can make anything they want. They got money there. They just haven't done the restructures.
16.
Yeah, I mean, how old is he? 29, 28?
I think he's 28. Let's see.
So,
no, he's 29 this year. He turns 29.
The one thing they haven't done at that position, except for Austin Borker, is develop their own.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you look at now, sure, you got an existing. How much is left on that contract? He only signed it a year ago.
It's not that bad. I just pulled it up. He's got, so it's 16 million this year and then 23 the next 2. When you look at other guys getting over 10 sacks a season, guys like Daniil Hunter and even Myles Garrett making 40 million a year now. That 23 doesn't look too bad for a guy as productive.
No, well, if you just look at free agency.
Yeah.
And the money some of these guys got in free agency. I mean, Owe, who, had a nice season between Baltimore and the Chargers last year, he got 25 a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't have paid that for sure.
No,
definitely not.
See, but that's part of the thing is that's why you're better off drafting a guy and developing him, but you got to make sure you draft the right guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key. I don't see Poole. I'm not saying he won't do it, but here's the other thing. The guy says, I want to get traded. So people think he's going to get traded. Arizona just signed him a year ago.
You don't get what you want in the NFL a lot.
Yeah. Well, how many times have we seen a player say, I want to get traded? The fan base goes crazy. They go, oh, the Bears are going to trade him. Bears are going to trade for him. It never happens because the guy never gets traded.
Max Crosby's still a Raider. I mean,
yeah.
They're talking about him all off season.
Well, how about Garrett? The guy, the Cincinnati Edge, who's now with Baltimore. Hendrickson. all these guys, oh, Bears are going to trade for him. No, they're not.
Yeah.
And
I've seen a couple people. There are two pass rushers that I don't think are a fit. And like you said, because they're edge rusher. If an edge rusher has sub 32-inch arms, to me, that's a much bigger deal than a defensive tackle with sub 32-inch arms. But a lot of people are asking about R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma. To me, he's got 32 and
he's not
30,
real big, is he?
31 and 5/8 inch
Yeah,
arm length.
they ain't ever taken a 31-inch arm
And
length on
Cassius
an edge.
Howe is sub 31 inches, I believe.
Well, Cassius Howell is 30 and a quarter or 30 and an eighth. And how about this? I mean, because everybody's saying about Bain having the shortest arm since 1999. While Howell's arms are even shorter, and his wingspan is shorter than he is tall, which is a big no-no.
Yeah, I think Cassius Howe, his arms are so short, and he struggles setting the edge. To me, the only way we would take a guy like Cassius Howe is if he fell to round 3, and you're talking about a guy who could just be a situational pass rusher, could come in maybe just in passing downs. I wouldn't mind him in a situation like that because his burst and acceleration off the line and his bend, I like that, but those arms are so short.
Here's what's going to happen, my prediction. We'll see if it holds true. Between him and Bain, the other teams are going to watch him like a hawk to see, because their argument is, the arm length thing. And if they have success in the NFL, and it doesn't mean just 1 year success, you could come out like gangbusters as a rookie and then drop off a cliff in year 2. So, I mean, let's say over the first 3 years, if they have success, then that changes the narrative a little bit.
Yeah.
But if they don't, you're going to see a bunch of people say, what have we been saying? See, no, what I think? I think Bain is going to end up being an inside player. It's my own personal opinion.
Or at least the guy who sets who plays edge on the first, maybe on rundowns, but in pass rush situations.
But I think he's an undersized 3 technique who could be a really, really good 3 tech and play it at. Aaron Donald played 285, 290 most of his career. And Bain should be able to do that. He's got the same kind of body.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, they've talked about it. They didn't really measure arm length as much, I guess, or they don't have the records of it before the year 2000. So that's why they go back to 99.
They were underclassmen. So we started doing arm length back in the 90s, early 90s.
Gotcha. But they don't, apparently they don't have anything on record past 99 of a guy who had arms like that, has never had a 10-sack season. So it's kind of a historical precedent here. If Ruben Bain comes out and has 10-sack season at edge for the first 2 years of his career, maybe that would change how guys evaluate this. But as of right now, you don't have edge rushers in the NFL producing with those short arms. So that it is a real thing. We also saw it. We talked a lot about it with Will Campbell last year. You don't have left tackles with short arms like that either. And we saw Will Campbell might have been a left tackle all year and played pretty well, but he got exposed in the playoffs.
Darn right he did.
The Super Bowl.
And it was all because of one thing, short arms.
Yep.
And I admit it. I am a big believer in arm length at certain positions. Yep. Edge being one, offensive tackle being the other.
Yep.
And it's just too much history going with that. I agree with an interior player. You can give away some, but how much do you want to give away?
Yep.
Because it's still part of the leverage game. There's a lot of guards playing in the league and centers that are playing in the league. They got 32-inch arms, 31 3/4-inch arms. So if you got a 32, 31 3/4-inch defensive tackle, you got to stand off and you might be able to get a really good player out of that. But, you prefer the preference is to have somebody who's got more length.
Yeah, especially. And now talking about a guy who has length, but he has a lot of injury concerns here. Someone asked about. Let me see if I can find the question. But they're asking
Caleb
about
Banks?
Caleb Banks. Yeah,
I think he's a physical reject.
it was my guy. My guy Eric Harper had a great question here. He said he's recalling something you've said about Banks in the past. He said you called him an enigma. What's the one NFL trait on his tape that makes you think he can actually stick in a pro rotation? Shout out to my guy Eric.
First of all, he played all of 96 snaps in 2025. Played in 3 games, never played more than 34 snaps in any game of the 3 games he played. And I saw all snaps. I saw probably 200 snaps, 250 snaps of his 2024 tape. He did not jump out. In fact, the first game this year before he got hurt, he was average. The last 2 games, comes back from the injury, he played pretty good ball, and that carried into the Senior Bowl. So if you're just looking at those 2 games and then you look at the Senior Bowl practice, you say, wow, this guy's going to be great. But you know what? You got those 2 games, he played a total of like 63 plays. That's all. That's your exposure. And then a few snaps at the Senior Bowl. You go back and you look at 24, where he played every game. It's a very average player. So to me, it's just a really hard guy. Now he breaks his foot in game 1, doesn't come back until the second last game. Then he goes to the combine and he's just doing drills and breaks his foot.
Looked like a monster in his limited amount of drills, but then broke his foot. Now I will say this about Caleb Banks: when we're talking about taking him in round 1, I'm way off that bandwagon. But with that broken foot, I think the chances of him falling down the draft rose up a lot. If he's there with your second pick in round 2, where it's your third pick of the draft, I think you have more of an opportunity to take a chance on a guy if they project him as a guy who could be a star in the NFL.
Well, here's what will happen, Swifty. It really won't be a personnel department decision.
Yeah,
it'll be a medical decision. The doctors, they already have a medical grade on him back in February. Then he re-breaks his foot, which means that he's going to have to go to the rechecks, which will be around the 15th of April, something like that, whatever that Saturday will be in a week and a half before the draft. So you're going to look at, he's going to have to go to that. You're going to look at the break he just got, how it's healed. Did he even have a surgery? I don't know if he had a surgery. Sometimes, was it even the same bone or was it a different bone? And because of the fact that he broke a bone in his same foot twice in 5 months, 6 months, there's going to be a lot of teams that put a red flag on him and won't draft him because it'll say it's,
So I'll go even crazier there. What if he fell to the 3rd round? Because he is a guy.
Well, again, it's a medical thing. If you got if having been in the room, when you got a medical reject on a guy, you can't take him. He's off the board. So it's up to the medical staff. So now I've seen several times where Team A could have a medical reject on it. Now, what we had not only our medical grades, we had medical grades from 4 or 5 other teams. And the way that worked, you go to the combine, there's like 6 orthopedic stations, and there's 4, 5, 6 teams at each station. They stay the same teams year after year after year. So all these doctors know each other. They're working with each other. They take turns doing the players, and those teams share their information. And so we had the medical grades from those teams that were, our partner, so to speak, in the orthopedic room at the combine. And there was a variance between Team A, Team B, and Team C. It's basically how they look at the injury, their experience, the doctor's experience with the injury, what's the chance of recurrence, all those types of things. So, best way to describe it is medical grades are just like scouting grades. very, very subjective.
Yeah, and he's a guy who the arm length is there, 35-inch arms.
The traits are there. There's no question.
Off the charts athletically, 9.84. So he's one of those guys. He'd be an athletic projection, man. I love it.
No, it's really like I say, he is strictly the medical staff will say yay or nay, and if there's going to be a team that's going to say yay, we know that, but it's there's going to be teams that say no too, and he'll be off their board.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Whether that's going to be the Bears, I have no idea.
No, I'm curious how far he falls on draft day, because he's a guy who, if healthy, if he would have played all season, he projects as a guy who could have went as high as the top 15 pick, but broken foot, didn't show anything on tape last year. He was hurt all year, and now he broke his foot again. So it's like, where does he go?
And a broken foot doing nothing. I mean, just doing drills.
We've seen guys fall down draft before when they're injured. Someone mentioned Nakobe Dean, who got hurt and ended up falling down the draft board. Things like that happen. And we saw one thing that we did see last year, that the Bears are willing to take guys who are recovering from injuries, because Shamar Turner got hurt at the NFL Combine last year, and Colston Loveland.
No, actually, he was hurt. He was hurt during the season. I don't think he worked out at the Combine.
I think
he got hurt at the end of the season. He went to the Combine.
He wasn't healthy, or not.
No, he didn't. He didn't work out. He went to he got hurt at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But he was at the Combine. Didn't work out. He did no workouts at all. Well, perfect example of what you're saying is Colston Loveland. He didn't work out either. And he was hurt, and they had, he had an injury that was a 6-month rehab. He had the surgery done right after the season, and it was almost like, to the day he was ready to go, when they said he was going to be ready to go. They, purposely eased up on him the first part, just to make sure. But, if the doctors give you a thumbs up, then you do it. I talked to one orthopedic, and I said, because Colston Loveland had what they call an AC reconstruction, and I had never heard that term before. And because I've had 2 AC surgeries on my right shoulder, but it was, gazillion years ago. And so I called this orthopedic friend of mine, and I go, what the hell is an AC reconstruction? And he, described what they do. And it's a newer procedure as compared to what, I had what they call a resection. They literally cut off the tip of the second time I separated my shoulder. First time they pinned it, which they don't do at all anymore. The second time, they cut off the tip of my clavicle, so it's just like a floating clavicle, and it just sits there. There's some wire there, and that's it. And I've never had a problem with it since. But they don't do that surgery anymore either. So they do this AC reconstruction. So I asked this guy, well, what's the rehab? He said 6 months. And I said, well, what's the prognosis? He said, most of the time, really, really good. He goes, if it was a quarterback, I'd be a little iffy. But any other position, they should be fine.
Yeah, tight end. So we weren't really worried about that. So I like that. Now, J2K asked a great question here. He said, do you think Poles could draft a position early in this draft that we're not talking about enough, like middle linebacker or cornerback? The 2 guys he brings up are C.J. Allen, the linebacker from Georgia, and Colton Hood, the cornerback from Tennessee.
I could say a corner before a backer. They only keep 5 backers. You got TJ. You're stuck with TJ Edwards for 1 more year.
Mm-hmm.
And they paid the guy from Cleveland. They paid Jackson. When you follow the money says no. And they wanted speed. I don't see it as a priority because of what they did in free agency.
And we have Hippolyte still from last year.
And you got Sewell coming back too. And Sewell actually played pretty good.
Back Jack Sanborn.
Right. And Sanborn was really brought back more for special teams, because you're only keeping 5 on your if you keep six, the sixth guy has to be an outstanding special teams player. And Hardy was like a cross linebacker edge last year who never saw any. He saw a few snaps at linebacker, didn't see any at edge, and everything else was special teams. But he's one of the best special teams players they had.
Yeah, and I mentioned this. This was a point I made. I was actually on Barroom the other night, the Bare Their Souls with Tooch in them. But I was talking about one thing I thought the Bears did when they brought in Sanborn and Cam Lewis is they upgraded their depth on defense, and they're guys who are now core special teamers. Jack Sanborn and Cam Lewis. They're guys who are better than we had last year at filling in if somebody gets hurt. Whereas Jack Sanborn can be your core special teamer. But if someone gets hurt during a game, Sanborn is already active and he's good enough that he can play one of those positions. Same with Cam Lewis. He can back up the nickel back or either safety spot. I don't see him as a starter. I see him as more depth guy in the secondary who can fill in if someone gets hurt, but a core special teamer.
He's taking Gardner Johnson's place, CJ's place. And he's this is the guy
he can play special teams, which
he's a good freaking football player.
Yeah.
One guy in Buffalo, when we signed him, he sends me a text. He goes, "Son of a bitch, you just got the guy. That's my favorite player because he's just a real tough guy." The head coach at Kansas, who recruited this guy at Buffalo, was the head coach in Buffalo.
Joe Brady.
No, at University of Buffalo.
Oh, University of Buffalo. Okay, gotcha.
Okay, he went to the University of Buffalo, and he said he's the toughest player he ever had.
Okay, I like that.
Just real tough football. I got the text. I got the text in here from Lance Leipold's the coach. He's the head coach at Kansas. He came from Buffalo. Before he was at Buffalo, he was at Wisconsin Whitewater. He won like 6 Division III national championships, and but when he had this kid in Buffalo, he was on record of saying, toughest kid I've ever been around.
And I got to address Q's point here. He says all this talk about speed, and then Poles goes out and signs Sanborn. I don't think Sanborn's as slow as a lot of people think, man. He ran a 4.7, and his instincts allow him to play a little bit faster than he looks. And then my guy Jay asked about Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. I would say definitely go back and watch the earlier portion of this because we discussed that. I don't think either of us are sure if he's a fit here. Now, Greg compared him to Jaquan Brisker, where he's a guy who can come up in the box, lay the wood. I've watched.
He'll do that. He can do it, and he'll knock your dick off. He is really a tough guy.
I've seen a couple flashes of him showing the cover skills that Dennis Allen looks for, but I think it's more of a projection. They would have to project him as a cover guy where he really hasn't shown enough on tape. So
and he really didn't run good. He ran 4.52, and what you don't see on tape, because I've trust me, I watched all of it. You don't see one snap of playing man.
Yeah, 100%.
Everything is zone.
My man Eric says, I got to be honest, those figures you got behind the Giants helmet back there are creeping him out.
Those are, I don't know what they are. My wife got those.
Oh, and Q's laughing.
And he's not the only person that said something. I got a neighbor who used to live here. Now he's out in Vegas. He goes, "What the are those?" And
oh man, I love it. A lot
they're
of people
mannequins, is what they are. They're mini mannequins.
Many mannequins out there, man. But we are excited about the draft. I think there's a lot of guys in this draft that fit what the Bears are looking for, but it's tough to find the perfect fits early in the first round. And I think a trade back really would fit what the Bears are looking for. Is there a guy, before we go, is there a guy that you think is a good fit if they do end up staying at pick 25?
I just don't. I don't know. I take your pick. Could it be the Toledo safety? Yeah, it could be. I just don't see that guy as what I've been told they're looking for. So, and they didn't bring that guy back. Jaquan Brisker didn't make any money. It's not like people baited him, so.
None of those guys did, honestly.
Right.
I mean, if
you're going to let that guy walk, why are you going to use a first round pick on that basically the same type of player?
Yeah. And unless they really think he has the cover skills. But I think it's also a deep group of safeties. And a good question by D. Levine here, since we talked a lot about arm length here. He says, what's the minimal arm length you would consider drafting an edge? Or what do you think the Bears are looking for at edge?
Theoretically, you want 33 or more.
33 plus. Yeah, I think 32 would be the absolute bare minimum, but I would like 33 or better. And I think Greg did answer this question by J2K. I think he said AJ Halsey, the LSU guy, would be a pretty good fit in Dennis Allen's defense.
You do see some man coverage. Another guy that didn't run as good as you would hope he would, but he plays fast. Mm-hmm. A good player. I'll tell you that there's a couple. Let me get in my safety list here. We mentioned a couple of them. The guy, Jalen Kilgore, like Bud Clark from TCU, Trayden Stoops from Arizona, Kamari Ramsey from USC.
Oh, I like Ramsey.
Okay, so these are all guys that if you're drawing up the player you want, those are the players, and you don't have to use a first round pick to get them.
Yeah, you can get at least one of those guys in round 2, maybe even round 3.
Right. If you've got, put it this way, if there's any hope on those comp picks, that's going to happen next week.
Oh yeah, and I guess we do got to say that because the owners' meetings are early next week. I believe it's Monday.
They really start Sunday.
Okay.
And they're done Wednesday. The next day is the 2nd. So they're done. Is Wednesday the 1st? Let me see.
I believe Wednesday is the 1st. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So Thursday is Yakis's workout at Illinois. I'm sure there'll be a few GMs going to that. There's really only one pro day this week. Why Indiana, that has some good players, schedule their pro day in the middle of the owners' meetings is beyond me.
They're like they saw enough of them at the national championship. They didn't care about the pro day. But yeah, that's a big one. The owners' meeting. So we know the comp pick situation is pretty much decided. But if there is a 1 or 2% chance that the Bears can get something done, and based on what Ryan Poles said, the door is maybe slightly open. We'll find out by Wednesday, and then we could put that to bed forever. And
I had a talk that day with Biggs, and he goes, "It's a dead issue." I go, "Okay, then why wouldn't Ryan Poles answer the question?"
Yeah, and that's exactly Someone
he
brought
said,
up.
I'll wait until the owners' meetings to talk to you guys about it.
Someone brought up Micah Parsons' arm length. I think there's always
Micah Parsons was drafted as a linebacker.
Yeah, there's always exceptions, but you also look at how they used Micah Parsons his first few years. He was kind of an off-ball to linebacker.
He was a linebacker that would come down to rush the passer, and then he was rushing the passer so well that they moved him more to edge. He's a stand-up guy, and he runs a 4.3. So,
and like Buck says, he's a unicorn. There were other people talking about Aaron Donald as well. You can't compare.
He's an inside tackle. Yeah, he's an inside tackle, and Aaron Donald actually has long arms. He's 6'1". So you gotta. It's not. If you got 30, you're not looking for a 5'10" guy to have 33-inch arms. Mm-hmm. Because then he's a freak. So Aaron Donald, for his height, had long arms.
Yeah.
So okay, perfect example. The guy from Oklahoma,
R. Mason Thomas. Yeah.
No, the defensive tackle.
Oh, Grayson Halton.
Okay, he's like almost 6'4" and got 31-inch arms. Where there's, Aaron Donald is 6'1" and had 32.5-inch arms or 32 5/8 inch arms. Look at the difference in height. There's a 3-inch difference in height.
And there's always going to be someone that breaks those rules. And that's why maybe Ruben Bain will be an outlier here, or maybe he'll be able to have some success when you see guys like Micah Parsons can do it. But you gotta be elite in almost everything else. And that's what Parsons is. He still has a long wingspan, even with his short arms, and he has elite burst, elite acceleration, elite bend. His pass rush moves are incredible. He has a motor that never stops. So
won't argue any of it.
Yeah, a lot of things that go into it. You can't just say, well, if this guy has short arms should be a thing. So it's different here, man. But
just for the sake of argument, devil's advocate, if he thought his arms were longer than what was measured at the combine, how come he didn't get measured at the pro day on Monday?
Yeah, Ruben Bain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Not only did he not have he didn't even have his height taken. He had his weight done. His weight, I think, was you got the thing I sent you. It was 265 or 275. But didn't do arm length, didn't run, didn't do any of the measurable stuff, and just did position drills and had a good workout doing position drills.
Yep, 100%. And Greg will be back here 2 weeks from today. It'll be April 10th. And then our next scheduled one after that will be day 2 of the NFL draft. That'll be fun, man, because we'll know who our first pick is, and we'll be looking at best players.
Well, maybe we'll know who our first pick is. We might.
Unless we trade down, yeah.
Yeah, we could be going into that saying, okay, today's the day.
Always a possibility, man. But, guys, we appreciate you all. Please hit the like button. Comment below if you're watching this later, and stay tuned. We will be back again in 2 weeks from today. Greg, as always, man, it's a pleasure having you on here talking draft. It's the best time of the year right now, man. Draft time.
For sure.
All right, bear down, guys. We're out of here.
See you later. Thank you.